Proverbs 10:3, the Lord does not let the righteous go hungry, but he thwarts the craving of the wicked. Job 9:22, he destroys both the blameless and the wicked. These two statements flatly contradict each other. One says God rewards the good and punishes the bad. The other says God destroys both. Both are in the Bible, canonized side by side with no footnote explaining which one is correct. To read a book that argues with itself, you learn whose voice to trust inside the story, and whose voice might be wrong. Step 1. Understand what kind of book this is. The Bible is not a single authored book with one uniform message. It's an anthology, a curated library of diverse texts spanning centuries, genres, and perspectives. Proverbs belongs to what scholars call the Deuteronomistic tradition, a theology of divine reward and punishment. Obey God, and you prosper. Disobey, and you suffer. Job dismantles that theology. Its protagonist suffers despite being blameless, and the text makes this point explicitly. The remarkable fact is that ancient Jewish sages chose to include both books in the canon, the officially accepted collection of scripture, without reconciling them. They preserved the disagreement on purpose. The contradiction is not a mistake. It's a feature of an anthology. And the complexity doesn't stop at theology. Then the characters are complex too. And the Bible is not a collection of hagiographies. Its heroes lie, doubt, and act immorally. Abraham passes off his wife as his sister. Moses kills a man. David commits adultery and arranges a murder. The writers constructed these moral dilemmas deliberately. If you try to vindicate every character simply because they appear in scripture, you miss the psychological depth that makes these stories enduring literature. Biblical figures should be read as recognizably human, with limited knowledge, mixed motivations, and real flaws. Just as the characters must be read as human, the text must be read as itself, which means setting aside assumptions that arose centuries after it was written. The character Yahweh changes his mind in the biblical text. In Exodus, God tells Moses he will destroy the Israelites, and Moses talks him out of it. That's what the text says. Later, theology may hold that God is immutable, unchanging, but importing that belief back into the text distorts what the text communicates. Similarly, elaborate doctrines of heaven and hell as afterlife destinations are not present in most of the Hebrew Bible. Reading the Bible on its own terms means encountering ideas that may conflict with later convictions. If not every voice in the Bible carries the same authority, you need a way to determine whose words to trust. There's a clear hierarchy, a tool from literary analysis called narrative reliability. Tier 1, the narrator, the voice telling the story, not a character within it, but the invisible presence that frames events. The narrator is omniscient and always reliable. What the narrator states as fact is fact within the story world. Tier 2, God's direct speech. When God speaks, his words carry the same authoritative weight as the narrator's. Tier 3, character's speech. The words of human characters are not automatically reliable. Characters can be wrong, self-deceived, or operating from limited knowledge. This hierarchy resolves apparent contradictions within a single book. The book of Job is the clearest demonstration of this hierarchy in action. The book opens with the narrator, Tier 1, stating explicitly that Job is blameless and upright. This is a narrative fact, not debatable within the story. Then God himself, Tier 2, affirms Job's righteousness to the adversary. Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one like him on the earth. Two tiers of authority establish the same point before the drama begins. Job is innocent. Hold that firmly because everything that follows depends on it. Now enter Job's three friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. They are tier 3 voices, characters. They insist that suffering is always punishment for sin. You must have done something wrong, they tell Job, because God is just. their theology matches Proverbs perfectly, but the reader already knows from tiers 1 and 2 that they are wrong. Job is blameless. Job himself takes a radical position. God does not operate a system of reward and punishment. He too is a tier 3 voice, a character, but at the end of the book, God speaks again and delivers the verdict. Job has spoken rightly about me, his friends have not. The hierarchy resolves the entire conflict. This brings us to the deeper payoff, not just of the book of Job, but of reading the Bible this way. Job's moral conclusion is radical. The truly righteous person is righteous for its own sake, not because it leads to reward, not because suffering is avoided, but because righteousness is its own justification. This idea emerges precisely because the text dismantles the reward and punishment framework, and it's only possible because the Bible preserves dissonance. If the editors had harmonized Proverbs and Job, flattened the contradictions, or made every character a moral exemplar, the reader would never encounter this harder, deeper insight. Reading the Bible on its own terms means resisting the urge to smooth over its tensions. The tensions are the point. The dissonant voices make the anthology richer than any single voice could be. And the hierarchy of narrative reliability, narrator, then God, then characters, is your compass for navigating that complexity.